Good morning, everybody. My name is Reverend Dr. Ron Fox, and I welcome you to our Sunday service for the Center for Spiritual Living, Space Coast. To begin our service this morning, my wife, Becky Fox, is going to open us with a prayer, and then one of our congregants, Carol Dabika, is going to be doing a spiritual reading. Beck?
So I just invite everybody to turn within. Just releasing all of this morning's activities, letting them go, being mindful of just being here right now. And as we are doing this, being reminded that each breath that we take in and as we release it, it is Spirit's breath, breathing us, expressing through us, as us, and for us. And I'm knowing that this wonderful divine expression is who and what I am. It is expressing its love, its peace, its tranquility through me, as me, and for me. And I'm knowing this to be so for each person who's on this Zoom call this morning, and each person who is viewing this recording later on. I'm knowing that each one of us is one in divine mind, that it is here for us, for each one of us. And I'm knowing that at this moment right now, that it is expressing through and for Reverend Ron, that his message is clear and heartfelt. That this morning's message about freedom is each one of our birthright. It is right here within us, expressing itself so easily and effortlessly. And so I'm knowing that as this morning unfolds, it is unfolding in divine perfection. It is releasing the love and the joy for each one of us. And so I am just affirming this, knowing that it is done, it is so, and so it is.
So the reading this morning is on freedom. And I was looking at the Guide for Spiritual Living, Science of Mind, yesterday. And the writing ended with 3 words: let freedom ring. And it caught my attention because about 2 weeks ago, when Reverend Ron asked me to do this today, the day after the 4th of July, I wrote something that I call Let Freedom Ring.
Oh.
The 4th of July, a special touch point for us all. Let freedom ring. Makes me remember and project my past memories of picnics and celebration, of driving to Montana with a carload of fireworks for the grandchildren and the adult child in us all, of barbecues and backyard fires, marshmallows and late night storytelling. Grandchildren cuddled up in my chair as the fire turned to embers, and the touch of my husband's hand. The sense of love and peace, the sense of belonging to a greater circle that encompassed our country, our world. Let freedom ring. Today, I breathe in the peace that goes beyond the 4th, the peace that comes only from the Spirit within, and whisper a quiet prayer. Let freedom ring.
That was beautiful, Carol. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I want to begin with something that when we're together, we begin with every week. And that is just to say, if you've never been to a Center for Spiritual Living before, we believe there's one God, many paths to that God, and we're here to love, honor, and support you, no matter what your divine path is. And also, the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast is a safe haven for people of all beliefs and lifestyles, whoever you are and wherever you find yourself on your journey of faith. You're welcome here. So in a little bit, we're going to begin today showing you a video. The video is about 7 minutes long, and I think it's self-explanatory, but just in case, it's the great grandchildren of Frederick Douglass repeating part of one of his speeches. And just to familiarize you a little with Frederick Douglass, he was a social reformer, an abolitionist, an orator, a writer, and a statesman. And before he was all of those, he was a slave. He rose from slavehood to do all of that. And I just want to read you something about him, and then we'll go in to the video. Douglass was a firm believer in the equality of all peoples, be they white, black, female, Native American, or Chinese immigrants. He was also a believer in dialogue and in making alliances across racial and ideological divides, as well as the liberal values of the U.S. Constitution. When radical abolitionists under the motto, "No union with slaveholders," criticized Douglass' willingness to engage in dialogue with slave owners, he replied, "I would unite with anybody to do right, with nobody to do wrong." So let's take a look at this video.
Do I look there or look there? Okay.
Just like your yeah.
Okay. My name is Alexa Ann Watson, and I am the great-great-great-granddaughter of
Frederick Douglass is my great-great-great-great.
I'm the great-great-great-granddaughter of Frederick Douglass.
I am the great-great-great-great-grandchild.
I've been counting on my fingers since I was like 5.
Whenever you're ready, here we go.
This is the 4th of July. It is the birthday of your national independence and of your political freedom.
Fellow citizens, I shall not presume to dwell at length on the associations that cluster about this day. The simple story of it is that 76 years ago, the people of this country were British subjects.
Oppression makes a wise man mad. Your fathers were wise men, and if they did not go mad, they became restive under this treatment.
With brave men, there's always a remedy for oppression.
They succeeded, and today you reap the fruits of their success. The freedom gained is yours, and you, therefore, may properly celebrate this anniversary.
Fellow citizens, pardon me. Allow me to ask, why am I called upon to speak here today? What have I, or those I represent, to do with your national independence?
Are the great principles of political freedom and of natural justice embodied in that Declaration of Independence extended to us?
I am not included within the pale of this glorious anniversary.
Your high independence only reveals the immeasurable distance between us. The blessings in which you this day rejoice are not enjoyed in common.
The rich inheritance of justice, liberty, prosperity, and independence bequeathed by your fathers is shared by you, not by me.
The sunlight that brought life and healing to you has brought stripes and death to me.
This 4th of July is yours, not mine.
You may rejoice, I must mourn.
Fellow citizens, above your national tumultuous joy, I hear the mournful wail of millions.
At a time like this, scorching irony, not convincing argument is needed.
Oh, had I the ability and could reach the nation's ear, I would today pour out a fiery stream of biting ridicule, blasting reproach, withering sarcasm, and stern rebuke.
For it is not light that is needed, but fire.
It is not the gentle shower, but thunder.
We need the storm, the whirlwind, and the earthquake.
The feeling of the nation must be quickened.
The conscience of the nation must be roused.
The propriety of the nation must be startled.
The hypocrisy of the nation must be exposed.
And its crimes against God and man must be proclaimed and denounced.
What to the American slave is your 4th of July? I answer, a day that reveals to him, more than all other days in the year, the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim.
To him, your celebration is a sham.
Your boasted liberty an unholy license.
Your national greatness, swelling vanity.
Your sounds of rejoicing are empty and heartless.
Your denunciations of tyrants, brass-fronted impudence.
Your shouts of liberty and equality, hollow mockery.
Your prayers and hymns, your sermons and thanksgivings,
With all your religious parade and solemnity are to him
mere bombast,
Fraud.
deception,
Impiety.
and hypocrisy. There is not a nation on the earth guilty of practices more shocking and bloody than are the people of these United States at this very hour. Allow me to say in conclusion, notwithstanding the dark picture I have this day presented of the state of the nation, I do not despair of this country.
This speech was written almost 170 years ago, but this part of it is still extremely relevant, especially with today's protests.
I think that when people are oppressed, they feel silenced, and if someone feels silenced, they get angry. There are certain tactics that you need to use to get people to really hear your voice, and it's not always going to be just like a very calm discussion.
I think he's mostly talking to the people who are already on his side, but believe that they can still try to talk this out, or that things are still justifiable. I know a lot of people at the time were saying, and people now are still saying, that it's not as bad as it could be.
While the 4th of July probably does not feel the same to me as it does to others, I wouldn't say that it has no meaning, because it is the time when America as a country became free from another country. But I would say that it's not the time in which I gained my freedom.
He had a lot of hope, especially for his age. And I'm getting to the point in my life where I'm only 20 years old, but I'm exhausted. I have these thoughts like, will we ever really get to this point? Or is this really something that we should actually spend our time fighting for?
Somebody once said that pessimism is a tool of white oppression, and I think that's true. I think in many ways we are still slaves to the notion that it will never get better. But I think that there is hope, and I think it's important that we celebrate Black joy and Black life, and we remember that change is possible, change is probable, and that there's hope.
Pretty powerful video, isn't it? And at the end, they really are speaking sign to mind when they say change is possible. So I thought it would be interesting to begin talking about what is a few definitions of spiritual freedom. So let me give you a couple. So Joel Goldsmith, a great writer, asks the question, what is freedom? And he says that freedom is life living itself, that freedom is joy and peace. And he said it's not a government condition, that our bodies can be imprisoned, but not us. Our bodies can be imprisoned, but not us. Wilford Peterson used to write a column for Science of Mind magazine years and years ago. And I saw that what I'm going to say to you now comes from the 2014, no, actually 1994, 1994 Science of Mind magazine. And he says, American freedom is freedom of the individual, that we're free to change ourselves. We're free to change ourselves. And he said, it's freedom of the mind. It remains, however, in inner chains, but we can think. We can think and we can change. And Ernest Holmes asks, what does it mean to be free? And he says, freedom means no restrictions. And he says, freedom is a birthright of every living soul. Freedom is a birthright of every living soul. And he goes on to say that freedom is an urge, that there is an urge towards freedom, a push towards self-expression. So recently, I came upon a talk that Ernest Holmes gave, and I think it was from 1934 at the Wiltern Theater in Los Angeles, and I want to read you a piece of Ernest's talk. I think as I'm doing this, because it really struck me, the reason that I'm doing this is how much of what he said so many years ago is absolutely relevant today. He said, humankind is looking to be free from evil, from bondage, from the shackles of lack, want, fear, uncertainty, pain, poverty, and the fear of the hereafter. And he said the great demand today is for a sense of security, freedom, and liberty. Doesn't that sound like what's going on today? I'm going to read some more, but the great demand today is for a sense of security, freedom, and liberty. True freedom, true liberty has something cosmic behind it. We're all tied to an invisible unity. We are tied to a law of cause and effect. We are one while we are many. We are all part of the whole. You know, we say from the one come many, from spirit comes many. And so Holmes says, so if we seek to destroy one another, because we're all part of one, if we seek to destroy one another, we hurt ourselves. That is the great lesson of life. Freedom comes when we no longer do anything that hurts anyone. Freedom comes when we no longer do anything that hurts anyone. And you know, it reminded me of a quote I saw from Marian Anderson, and I think I put this on Facebook a couple of weeks ago, but listen to what she says. She says, as long as you keep a person down, some part of you has to be down there with him. So it means you cannot soar as you otherwise might. So she's saying when we hold somebody down, we need to be right there with them, holding them down. And when we're doing that, we cannot be all that we were meant to be. So I read a blog this week, and the author talks about freedom being a choice. And he says life is filled with choices. And so here are a couple of tips, 2 tips for what we can do to choose wisely. And the first thing he says is listen to your intuition. You know, we talk about this so often. Listen to that still small voice, to make time, to spend time in quiet, whether it's meditating or however you choose to do it. So you can hear that intuition. And he has something that's kind of unique. He said that when you're facing a choice, he said, it said, flip a coin. And when the coin is in the air, you suddenly know what you want to do. When that coin is in the air, it comes to you, aha, this is what I want to do. I've never tried it, but it'd be interesting to see if it works. Another thing that we can do to choose wisely is not let fear decide for us. You know, change, we all know, change can be scary. But what we need to do is make the choice that's best for us, not a choice that's avoiding what we're afraid of. And a third thing that we can do is trust ourselves. And that really ties in to the first one. Don't let doubts creep in. When you make that choice, when you've listened to your intuition, whatever it is, believe in the choice you made. And remember, everything is happening in divine perfect order, just as it should. And lastly, don't look back. Once you make the decision, it's easy to look back and doubt. So don't look back. Just know you've made the right decision. Something else that when we have freedom of choice, we need to be conscious. We need to make conscious choices. So I want to talk to you about 2 ways that you can make conscious choices. And the first one is to find your values. You know, we need to have a clear sense of what matters to us. And our values help us direct our behavior. And if you don't have values, you may go through life without a clear purpose or a clear direction. So focus on what matters to you, whether it's family, relationships, work, school, your health, whatever it is. And so I want to tell you something about myself with values. And I've talked about this before, but I haven't in a long time. So probably most of you would not know this. So years ago, when I was doing corporate work, I went to a 2-week workshop, and my roommate worked for General Electric. And he had a set of cards that they called a values clarification exercise. And I really liked these cards. And so he told me, here, during the weekend, it was in Philly where I lived, so I could go home. So he said, here, take these home and play with them. So I took them home, and what they are, it was a deck of cards that had values on them. And I actually don't remember all of them, but it was like family, husband, wife, children, relationship, things like that. And then it had other things about religion, and it had work values. And the idea was you were supposed to take these cards and put them in the order that was important to you, in the order that you valued. So I went home and I got my wife to sit down and I explained it to her, and I put the cards in order that I believed were my values, and I went through them with her. And I had all of the family values on top and all of the work values on the bottom. When I got all done, she looked at me and she said, could you do that again? Would you go through it again? And I could tell something wasn't okay. So I went through them again, same order, family values first, most important, work values last. And she turned to me when I got done the second time, and she said, you must be really unhappy. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, you got all the family values first and the work values last, but it isn't how you're living. We get the leftovers from work. And it was eye-opening for me. And we sat there and we had a really deep conversation about really what values we both had and how we wanted to incorporate them in my life. And it was a life-changing exercise. really take the time to say, this is what I value, and this is what I'm going to live. Second way to become more conscious is to master your mind with conscious thinking. And what does that mean? It means to challenge your thoughts and belief, challenge your typical thought patterns and your typical behaviors. Acknowledge to yourself what your biases are and what your limited ways of thinking are. Admit that you don't know everything and commit to being responsible. And then think about the impact of your words and your deeds and your choices on other people. And ask yourself, what would an irresponsible use my freedom be? And what would be a responsible way of using my freedom? So I want to tell you about an article that I read this week by Louise Hay. And she begins by asking 3 questions. Who are you? Why are you here? And what are your beliefs about life? Who are you? Why are you here? And what are your beliefs about life? And she goes on to say that there's a power within us that can direct us to perfect health, to perfect relationships, to a perfect career, to prosperity. But she says, first, we need to believe that all of that is possible. And next, we need to release the conditions that we don't want, the conditions that are blocking us from perfect health and relationships and careers. And she said that you and I, all of us, are connected to the infinite mind that has all knowledge and all wisdom. And because we're connected to that infinite mind, all of the wisdom and all of the knowledge of spirit is available to us anytime we choose to access it. And we have a choice about how we use that power. There's that word again, choice. We have a choice on how we use that power. We can rehash the past and stay stuck right where we are, or we have the freedom to create a new life for ourselves. And we talk about this a lot in New Thought. We contribute to the conditions in our life by the choices we make. Do we play victim, or do we take responsibility? When we play victim, we play the blame game. And when we play the blame game, we give up our power. Blame gives away power. Responsibility is a more mature way to respond to a situation. We always have a choice. And we can ask ourselves, what can I do to make this different? We're at a place that we are not happy. We can ask ourselves, what can I do to make this different? And remember, Ernest Holmes tells us there's no limit on the law. The only limitation is the way we use it. So I want to tell you a story. Becky found this story on the internet, and I actually wasn't going to use it. She said, oh, it's such a good example, use it. So here's the story. A young boy named Mike was walking home from school one day, and he realized that there was a fellow ahead of him who had tripped, and all of the books that he had 2 sweaters. He had all of the books. He had 2 sweaters. He had a baseball bat. He had a baseball glove and a small tape recorder, and they all went flying. So Mike went to help him. He helped the boy pick up all of this stuff and found out his name was Bill. And He found out that Bill loved video games, he loved baseball, he loved history, and he was having trouble with some of the subjects in school. Well, because Mike helped Bill, Bill invited him to his house, and they had a really terrific afternoon. They had some soda, they watched TV, they shared some laughs, and it was a really terrific afternoon. And then Mike went home. And they considered, they still saw one another around school some of the time, and they had lunch together a few times. And then they went to the same high school, and they bumped into one another every once in a while. And when they were seniors, Bill grabbed Mike one day and he said, could we have a conversation? And they sat down by themselves, and Bill said, do you remember that day when you helped me pick up my stuff? He said, did you ever wonder why I had so much with me, why I had books and sweaters and a baseball glove and a bat and a tape recorder? He said, did you ever wonder? And he said, you see, I cleared out my locker that day because I didn't want to leave a mess for anybody else. I had stored away some of my mother's sleeping pills, and I was going home to commit suicide. But after we spent some time together, talking and laughing, I realized that if I had killed myself, I would have missed that time and so many others that followed. So you see, Mark, when you picked up those books that day, you did a lot more. You saved my life. Once again, a simple choice. Saved his life. And we're always a choice than what we do. I want to close with something from Ernest Holmes and then a closing thought. This is something that Ernest said we can say quietly to ourselves every day. I know that I can make conscious use of the divine law of my being. I know that this law reacts immediately and creatively to my faith. I know that when I speak this word for myself, there is a direct reaction toward me. I know that when I speak it for others, there is a direct reaction toward them. There is no doubt or uncertainty in my consciousness. I identify myself with the good I desire. I have complete confidence that the law of good will respond to me by creating the object of this desire. I have a quiet contentment and an inner sense of peace. I have an enthusiastic sense of well-being. I know that all the power there is for me. Therefore, I put on the whole armor of faith. Today and every day, I expect good. I anticipate meeting new friends. I joyously anticipate contacting new situations which will increase my livingness. My life is an adventure. I know that wonderful things are going to happen to me. I know that everything I do shall turn into good for myself and others. And so it is. I want to leave you with a closing thought. You know, I've talked about before that I like sports, and I have a subscription to Sports Illustrated. In the latest edition, a senior writer named Tom Verducci has a very long article talking about the pandemic of 1980. And it's just a really terrific article. And what I'd like to leave you with is the last sentence the last paragraph of the article that Tom wrote. He says, more importantly, what a pandemic teaches you is not to wait for happiness from weddings, World Series, armistice days, and any such major milestone in life. Find it in everyday moments. Appreciate the preciousness of a child's laugh, the dedication of healthcare providers and first responders, the empathy of community, and especially the shared love of family and friends. Once you do, no matter amid the best or worst of times, you understand the hub of the solar system is not a place, but the love that lies within. Thank you for being here. Bless you. Have a great week.